Trenches Podcast.
How you look, bro? How I look?
Look great. Never better. From what I can see up here.
Okay, good. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Trenches Podcast. Obviously, as you can see, we are not in our regular studio. We have the honor, Mr. Sam.
The privilege.
The privilege to be in this beautiful barbershop, Fino for Men. So welcome. Thank you, Alejandro, for having us.
Hashtag sponsored.
The shop has put me in front of a lot of great minds. You know, one of them here today to help us try to understand, navigate. Also try to help me understand why I paid almost $6,000 for a picture. Here we are, Mr. Sam.
Thanks for having me.
No, what's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, it's funny how it all worked out in that chair over there and starting up these conversations. And I'm glad to be having that here with you.
Dude, we were talking about it earlier. It's like, I remember you came in and you were like, oh, I think you'll enjoy this, Trick. We'll talk about like kind of like just like stocks and cryptocurrencies. And you're like, I think you'd enjoy this, bro. Like, I just paid, X amount for this NFT. I was in shock.
Yeah.
I was like, what do you talk? Like, what do you mean?
It only gone deeper since then.
But
that was only the beginning of the spiral.
It was so wild. I was just like, wow, that's kind of crazy. Because even Joe next to us was like, he turned around like in amazement, and I was just like, dude, I don't even know. I don't know what's going on.
I knew I was in trouble. When I'm getting double takes.
Everybody
across,
was like,
wait a
all the clippers turned off, blow dryers. Everybody's like, what's going on?
Yeah, but no, it's a crazy space, and we're glad to have you a part of it. More recently,
dude, I know.
Have you broke the news yet? Can we start off by that? You have an announcement to make.
I have not made the announcement to anybody. I did an episode that you can watch it on the last, on the channel.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, of course. See, you're better at this than me.
Big YouTube guy.
No, yeah. So we've been talking about this for a long time. We're talking to a few other people, and yeah, man, I pulled the trigger, and I am now part of the Lazy Lion community, bro.
Congratulations. Welcome. Roar, King, roar.
Man. Yeah, we out here, bro. It's exciting, bro. It's exciting. It's a little confusing. It's scary. But you asked me when you came in, you're like, how does it feel? Yeah. And I was like, it feels good, bro. It feels good. It's kind of like,
you're part of something perhaps bigger than yourself, not to belittle you as a person,
no,
but you're part of a larger community. I think we'll obviously talk a little bit about that later in the conversation, but it's a cool thing to be a part of.
It is exciting, bro, right? When I put it as my picture on Instagram, Twitter, and then immediately just a bunch of people were like, yo, dude, what is that? Just all these type of questions. And I was like, listen, I'm doing an episode. All these questions will be answered on Thursday because I'm not even too sure how to answer what you're asking me right now. But yeah, man, I did a questionnaire poll on my Instagram, and I was like, hey, if I have, somebody come on who I would like to say is well-versed in this space, would you guys like to listen? What questions do you have? And it was overwhelming, the amount of people that were just so interested and had so many questions, and I'm just happy to have you. But it's such a space that is so new. There's so many questions, but there's so much going on. Yeah, it's happening so fast, and I feel like, unless you really sit there and invest time and kind of try to see what's going on, it's a little confusing.
Yeah, bro. It's a lot to unpack for sure, and I'm lucky and privileged to have been able to spend a lot of time on this stuff. Mm-hmm. My wife would certainly agree with that over the past 3-4 months, and I've learned a lot along the way. And I don't know everything about everything that there is to know about NFTs, and in fact, what I think where NFTs will go is impossible to know because it's evolving right before our eyes. But the lay of the land today and the state of the industry, I guess, is I have somewhat of a firm grasp on. So I'm happy to be here to talk about it.
Absolutely, bro. Well, I guess the number one question, bro, a lot of people that I had is, I guess what is an NFT? What is it?
Sure. That is a loaded question depending on who you ask. It's a bit more complicated than you might think. At a base level, and in fact, I've tweeted about this, like how do people describe it? Because I myself haven't really known, but the most basic definition would be a digital collectible. So the easiest example is think of like a baseball card, a piece of art, anything that you collect, you can create a digital version of, tokenize it, have it minted on the blockchain, and then that permanently, immutably lives there as digital proof of ownership. And you are then attached to that asset. Your digital wallet owns that token, and that's nothing can change that. I really do think of it more though in terms of connections. Like to me, NFTs are connections to other things, which sounds very vague, but when you think about what collectibles really are, it's a physical connection to a memory, to a sports team, collecting memorabilia. It's a connection to a community, something larger than yourself, like we talked about in the case of the Lions. Right. And so NFTs to me are like built connections through digital collectibles is how I think about it.
Right, and that's one thing that you said too, and a lot of people are always like, "Oh, you get to be part of a community." I didn't really know what that was until you pointed me in the direction of a few different projects. But I went out in Discord, which I've never used before, and it's like Twitter.
I've used it for years, and I still get overwhelmed by it.
I don't do, like, it's like, you open it, and then like if I comment something, people will have a whole conversation on just my comment, and then times 30,000 people that are in the.
And if you walk away for 10 minutes, you come back and it's
I was just like, okay,
it's gone.
But I remember I was like, okay, I had to make a little account, and I was like, why should I buy a line?
Mm-hmm.
And within 30 seconds, it was like, because it's awesome. Like the just response was just crazy. And I was like, oh, that's what they mean. That's what they mean by, people are just, it's a very active group that I think, number one, answers a bunch of your questions. Some people have multiples, and they point you and like, check out their Twitter, check out this person, like make sure if you have any questions, follow this person. And I think like that's just, for me, that's how I got a lot of understanding besides just talking to, for example, you or someone else.
I mean, the best people to ask about any project are the people that own that project, and they've similarly invested money into being a part of that community. So who better to guide you on that path to why you should or should not get involved in that community than the people that are in it themselves. And I think the lazy lions are really the best.
Put some respect.
Exactly. They're not active. They're lazy. They're probably the best example of that. I think community, if I were to pinpoint one project that is known for their community, it would be the Lions. They're in it for one another. They are always there to support others that are in the project, and it's just an all-around great vibe community, as I'm sure you've experienced already in the short time you've owned it.
Dude, it's so crazy. Like, I don't know, like, it's funny because even on Twitter, people who aren't Lions, it'll be other projects will just start, commenting, liking, retweeting. I don't know. I just feel like there's it doesn't matter if you're all the way, if you buy an ape, if you buy this new stuff that's coming up every day. It's like, it's just kind of an excitement to be like, oh, someone else is, like someone else is participating in the space.
Yeah, it's a very positive space.
A lot, yeah.
And I'm glad you noticed that early, because there is definitely a dynamic of. There's a phrase, I don't know if you've encountered this yet, but it's the acronym is WGMI, which stands for "We're Gonna Make It." It's like an NFT catchphrase, which basically means we're all in this together. We're here early. We're at the right place at the right time, and everyone's in it for each other's success. And it's not. I think in a traditional world, whether it be in finance, whether it be in sports, even of rooting for or against your team versus other teams, where there's a lot of adversarial, tension in certain instances, where in this case, for the most part, everyone who actually is for the health of the industry, everyone wants others to win. Everyone wants all projects to do well. And it's, you find that as the tide rises, all boats go with it, which is kind of a cool dynamic, and everyone can celebrate together.
Yeah, that's like you said, bro. I noticed that super early, and I think one thing that all these different projects have in common, whether like I said, from this this side or this side, is that I feel like there's a level of uncertainty that everybody shares, where it's like, listen, man, the more the merrier. Let's ride it out. Let's kind of see what's gonna happen.
Well, it's crazy because you look at traditional markets, and I'm gonna use the opportunity to say this. None of this is financial advice. I know nothing. My brain is very smooth. Don't take anything I say as actual advice on where to spend your money. That being said, you look at traditional financial markets, and you have a track record, a history of performance, and it dates back to the Great Depression, where with some certainty that the stock market on average will return S&P 500 10%-ish on an annual basis. And with that comes a certain safety and willingness to invest in traditional assets. When you look at, then let's then translate that, which is already a far cry from traditional markets, into crypto, which is just now becoming more mainstream as institutions get more involved after several years of dragging their feet on it. Even that is volatile in comparison to traditional markets, and it's very reactionary to traditional markets. And there's very small market factors that can trigger a huge swing, whether for the positive or negative, in cryptocurrency. Now consider that because NFTs are a derivative of cryptocurrency, they're bought in cryptocurrency. Yeah. It's like you have an asset that's a reaction to a volatile asset, which is a reaction to another asset, being traditional markets. It's like maximum volatility. So it's to your point that no one really knows what's going to happen, and all you can really do is just enjoy the ride and have fun along the way.
Do you have like certain cryptocurrencies, like small coins, big coins?
Yeah, I dabble a little bit. I don't do too much with the dog themed coins and the ones that make big news. I like to have a use case behind it.
For sure.
And really I think use case is an operative word here in an NFT. They'd call that utility. And what I like to invest in and what I like to hold as assets are things that bring me real world value, while they theoretically over time also build my wealth. And that is what NFTs are to me. And they may not always go up, but it's really unlike, if I own a stock in Disney, I can't go into that boardroom, put my fist down and say, here's what I think we should do. But when I own an NFT of a collection, so my biggest investment is in this project called Gutter Cat Gang. I had to get the plug in there.
For sure.
When I'm in that Discord, I can actively be involved in the future of the project and where that goes as an organization. And it's this unique dynamic of not only having that seat at the table to determine where your community goes, where your really investment goes, but also the community that's all around that. There's this shared purpose, there's a shared risk, but then a shared reward. But then with that comes a certain camaraderie, and it's all wrapped up into this great, cool thing. And I always think about it, it may not be the best mindset, but regardless of the value of the NFT itself on a floor basis, to use a more specific term to the industry, like you can still have fun owning it. So like you can participate in the investment as much as you reap the rewards down the road of the investment.
Right. And now that's because with you using, you're saying as an investment, like you buy it and, the hope is for it to, go up in value. But from speaking to you, there's different, you can buy one and hold it. You can buy one and try to, sell it or you attach it to different projects. And I actually got the reason why I was strongly considering, having one was to attach it to the podcast and stuff like that. So can you kind of explain like the difference of having it, owning it? Like, is there a certain
it's different people have different methodologies, and I could give a 30-minute answer on this alone, but every project will have a utility that comes with it, whether that be the pursuit of let's say a TV show around the IP, whether it be a metaverse application, so creating a metaverse world out of ownership of the NFT that you could then participate in using your asset as the avatar. It could be like the Lions, like a sort of rewards distribution program where the money that goes into the project then goes back to the users for holding and owning their Lions. It could be a game. So by holding the NFT, I get access to a certain gaming ecosystem. Like there's so many different things that a project can bring you, and you're buying into the theory that those things and those aspects of utility will build value for the project over time. And to get to your point, I know that was kind of long-winded. No. To get to your point on rights, ownership, and IP, they're not all, but there are a number of projects, and more specifically the high-quality projects, they're now allowing the owner of the NFT itself to utilize the IP for commercial purposes. So by holding your lion, by holding an ape, the most notable one, Bored Ape Yacht Club, you could then utilize that picture, the JPEG that you own, to then grow your business, to be the face of your podcast, to be, for me, mine's my LinkedIn picture. I will then use that as I grow businesses and build businesses. I will use that as sort of my public persona, my face on the outside. And it's unique because, to go back to Disney, like I can be a shareholder in Disney, but if I use Baby Yoda to be my business logo, I'm getting a cease and desist the next day. Right. But in this case, using Bored Ape Yacht Club as my example, that in and of itself has become such a powerful brand. And as an owner of a piece of that brand and owning one of the NFTs, I am empowered to basically build brands off of their brand that they are going lengths to grow. Gotcha. And then I'm in turn empowered to do the same on top of that, which as far as I know, I've never encountered anything that powerful in terms of freedom of IP, I guess.
Right. Can we touch on the Bored Ape Yacht Club? Yeah. Because I don't know why, but that one is, I don't know if that was the first one or but why is that one such like a statement? I guess why, what about that rose it to be, the number one traded, the number one, floor price on every platform? Well,
say as far as floor price goes, I think what would be seen as the gold standard is CryptoPunks. Like that's like the OG. Those launched in 2017. They basically sat worth nothing for.
Is that the
months.
One that Odell has?
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
yeah.
So there's 10,000 of those. The art kind of sucks, to be honest.
Dude, they're
but, like,
lame.
It's a legacy thing. Like, that was like the first 10,000 unit avatar driven project. It's less about what it does for you, more about what it resembles. It means I was somewhere so early. I am an authority. I'm an early believer, early adopter, and with that comes a certain level of clout, credibility, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Wait, so they don't have like a plan,
They don't, not to the same extent as like Bored Apes do. Like they have a Discord channel, but they don't do like events. They don't do like utility bonuses. Again, it's more of like there's a limited number of them. They will always be the first one of this certain type of project, and thus those have an increased value.
Gotcha.
And that will sustain over time.
Yeah.
So Bored Ape Yacht Club, they kind of, I mean, people forget they become so mainstream, but they launched in I think May. So it's been about 6-7 months.
Yeah.
Which speaks to the nascence of the market in general versus traditional market. So it's kind of hard to like make sweeping judgments on where this will go, given you don't have the benchmark data to give that any sort of credibility. But so they launched, and they did. You touched on the question around CryptoPunks, because Bored Apes have made it the norm to deliver value back to their users, and that was done through. And it's as I sit here, I'm like, wait, there maybe it wasn't anything that special, but it was more of, it was the people that got involved so early, the people making it their profile pictures. Again, it was like they really kicked off a run of these types of projects, and what they've become has since evolved into something so much more. So I was in here a couple weeks ago for NFT NYC. That really was like the culmination of everywhere they've been the past 6 months and how much they've grown. They had, I wasn't able to attend, unfortunately, but they had a yacht party, like literally Bored Ape Yacht Club, big boat, a bunch of people on it. Holders could come in and party their ass off all night. They had other big networking events. They had a merch pop-up shop. But then the big one, they had a warehouse party up in Brooklyn. We're down in Brooklyn. I get mixed up. Where they had Lil Baby performed. They had Beck, the band. Chris Rock did a stand-up gig. Basically, like all these entertainers, famous people. It's become this like worldwide country club of sorts, where it's not even about like what. As I sit here with my ape on my watch, like it's not about.
I was gonna be like, yo, bro,
it's like it's not about what I have access to in this current moment, but it's like who I'm affiliated with. Like if I go to Steph Curry's Twitter, he has his as his profile picture. If I go to Von Miller's Twitter, he has his as profile picture. If I go to Jimmy Fallon's Twitter, his is profile picture. There's only 10,000 units of those, and I'm inflating this a little bit, but I'm important enough to be one of those along with them and rub shoulders with them in theory. And they're really playing into this. And in fact, one of their key future roadmap items is a clubhouse in Miami. Think of it like a Soho house, where by paying a membership fee, you then get access to come into this venue, enjoy drinks, networking, rub shoulders with famous people theoretically that are a part of this organization, this club. And rather than pay that membership fee, I get to own the asset itself, and I get it. I should say I get in by owning the asset, and rather than I compare it to country club off the bat, and I think that's a fitting description, because if I pay for a country club membership and I don't golf at all on that given year, like that's just money down the drain.
Right.
I could own this ape though, and that's my membership fee to all these different cool things, and that continues to appreciate in value. It's like a subscription that I own. And that is mine, and I can sell that to someone else as an asset versus paying a country club $100,000, whatever it is, and then that money's just gone out the door. Right. So it's entirely changing how to think about community, about membership, about exclusivity. I mean, I posted on my burner Twitter a funny tweet where I put my watch with my ape on it with my Rolex side by side, and I'm like, what's a bigger flex? Because that's a true question. Like technically, like I'm like this is like the in fact, I'm just noticing now it's scratched, but it's the entry level Apple Watch is the fucking aluminum, and yet like next to a Rolex, like this is in fact worth more with that ape as the face of it. So it's changing how you think about things, which is interesting.
It is, bro, because kind of to use that example, bro. Past weekend I had a staycation, and I was like, we were at at the Wynn, and I was like, oh, let me just walk into the Cartier store, bro. Let me see what these watches talking about, So I go, I try it on, and the one I liked it was like $7,500. you know, I tried. I'm like, this is beautiful. I'm like, it's kind of crazy. Like my favorite rappers have this watch. You know, I want it. And I'm like, you know, we went to lunch and then we walked by the Rolex store. They didn't have anything, but they had the display box.
Yeah.
And I tried it on a date just, you know, 41, and I'm just like, oh my god, and it's the same. It was kind of around the same price. And then I was like, but in that moment, I had already, you know, put money to Ethereum. I'm like, I just have to wait for it to clear,
Yeah.
and I'm pulling the trigger on this thing.
Yeah.
But then I'm looking at this while I'm holding it, and I'm just like, oh my god. So, but it's like my wife was like, "Just, are you sure you wanna get the NFT instead of?" But I was just like, I think I think long term, you know, I think this is it's gonna be awesome. But it is kind of crazy looking at, you know.
Well, that's what I mean.
just looking at
I
that
want to
and
stop
the-
there because that's an important decision that you just made, and you made a conscious decision to emphasize your online identity and really your brand and persona over your, let's call it IRL in-person flex. Like, what is, besides every so often someone noticing your watch and saying like, "Oh, dope watch, man."
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does that really do for you versus being a part of a larger worldwide network organization and having your brand, your personal identity attached to the entirety of that organization and being able to build your brand identity off of that. I think that we don't understand what that means even yet. I think we think that we do, but we just don't. And especially as you know, there's clear evidence and data that I don't have offhand around kids spending ungodly amounts of money on skins in Fortnite and to look cool with their friends,
I did see that,
or spending money on Roblox and especially in COVID, creating these digital personas, these digital worlds. And all of a sudden you kind of look around and say, wait, like our online presence is more valuable and goes further to building, let's call it clout, than anything we could do in person on, and not only that, but doing so at scale in front of thousands, if
Yeah, I was
not
gonna say your reach
hundreds
is
of
just
thousands
like,
of
it's
millions
not
of
even
people
compared
as
to-
time goes on. So it just, my point is you made the right decision.
Appreciate you, bro. So kind of to touch on too, like the digital space, right? Where, you know, we kind of talked about the metaverse and stuff like that, and having your token, your JPEG be the entry point into all these different things. Now, all these different I kind of look at the same as crypto right now, right?
Yeah.
Where we were talking about this, a few Instagram pages that we follow, and it's like, you know, 4 times a day, there's like, oh, this is gonna be the new apes, this is gonna be the new this and that, and you see, you know. For me, I kind of see them on TikTok a lot, like the different type of, if you want to be, you know, this is the 2 coins to watch or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, with all these different, you know, projects, all these different cryptocurrencies, man, like how, and all of them kind of having to do their own, you know, like the lions, they have their island, right?
Yeah.
Apes have
They'll have a shtick.
yeah. So like, I guess, how do they, can they all coexist? Does it work? If they don't,
Where does this all go? Like,
yeah,
I get what
like
you're saying,
how do they coexist, bro? Because they're all coexisting already separately.
Yeah, I think, and this I have a long thesis on where I would recommend people invest, which I won't get into today, but especially seeing Bored Ape Yacht Club and the cultural phenomenon that it's become, there's been a lot of eagerness, not only from potential project owners to be the next one and to capture that incoming money and incoming interest from people that see this and want to find the next one, but then on that note, from customers and now adopters of NFTs to catch that wave that could take them to where Bored Ape Yacht Club is today. And I'll say my thesis also summarizes to say there will never be another Bored Ape Yacht Club. Like anyone that says there will be that is wasting their time. And that is not so much because of the floor price, but just because of how they've structured their project and the utility that's gone into it was such like right place, right time. And that's kind of positioned itself as the preeminent project. But the good news is that by the nature of the limited wallets that exist in the NFT universe today, coupled with the ongoing affordability issue with apes specifically, but even some of the lesser projects in, you know, the ape floor as of today is 42 Ethereum, which, doing back of napkin math, it's got to be $175,000 USD, which is not, it's an expensive watch. I'll tell you that much. But wow. Even like looking at like compared to that, you know, 3 Ethereum for some of these projects sounds cheap, but then consider that 3 Ethereum is what, $14,000, and then compare that with like the median income across the United States. Like that's just not practical for 99% of people to fork over that much for a project. So my prediction is that there's going to be an ongoing, I guess, it'll go in phases where, you know, as apes rise, you're going to start seeing the Jimmy Fallons, the Post Malones, whoever else getting involved in picking up those individuals. Like Jimmy Fallon's not sweating the floor. Like he's going to hold his ape and he's going to hold it theoretically forever. And that's in turn going to affect the market. There'll be less available for sale out there, and there's going to be a supply squeeze. And then over time, the price will continue to rise. That'll become a sort of, a dream asset for a number of people. It's sort of, no pun intended, but it's the yacht that people dream of having at some point down the road that people don't typically get.
Right.
But there will always be the next project up that will be affordable to the everyday person, at least more affordable, that will then be the one to rise. And they'll sort of follow that path of rising floor price over time as more people come into the market, work their way up, and so on. And there's always going to be this process. So to get back to the question, I think they will all coexist, but there's always going to be a competition to be that next one up,
Sure.
to follow the Bored Apes, and that's all going to be based on execution and just the quality of the project.
Right. So that's what I was going to ask you, for anybody, just the regular person who's like, you know what, I kind of want to look at this space. I want to dive into it. I guess what are certain things to look for when, they go on OpenSea or what else and be like, oh, this one, because assuming it's, it's like you kind of eat with your eyes first, like, oh, this one kind of looks cool.
Yeah.
But the ones that kind of like, you showed me this pickle, it kind of looks crazy, but it's like,
It's dumb.
and I'm pickle as in like an NFT, bro. You know what I'm saying?
There's getting a couple guys to show each other pickles.
Yeah, I mean, nothing crazy. You know what I mean? But like, I guess, what are people looking at? What do they look for?
Yeah, I mean,
versus all that stuff.
Honestly, that's a question that I ask myself every day, and I'll go back to the not financial advice, because you watch this random podcast on YouTube and you think that the person you're hearing from is an expert and they make all the right decisions. Like I bought things that are now worth less than I bought them for, and I'm just sitting on them because I can't sell them. Well, even in some cases, even if I tried, I couldn't sell them because they're worth nothing. So I've made bad decisions, and part of what I'm sharing here is my experience making those bad decisions along the way. The most attractive story you hear about, let's take the example of Bored Ape Yacht Club, is the person that got in day one, that minted their ape. Yeah. They got their ape, they held it, they diamond handed it for the past 6 months, and it's gone from what was probably the mint price at that point was like a couple $100 to now worth $170,000. And everyone wants to capture that.
Dude, not to cut you off, the guy who I bought the lion from, they minted it, bro. Yeah, it was for 0.08 Ethereum, and I'm doing the math, and I'm just like,
yeah, damn. You could see, and ETH was less was less expensive back then too, so that was probably like a couple $100. Yeah. So everyone wants that story, and everyone wants to find that next thing, and so a lot of times people chase the mints, which means they're trying to buy initial offerings of new projects that haven't been to market yet, that they could be that next big thing. And my opinion is that there will never be that next big thing, as I already said. So what I really look for and where I'm putting my money these days is projects with a proven track record of performance. So they're going to be a bit more expensive, but the fundamentals are there in that they have at some point in their life cycle, whether it be upon initial launch or throughout the early stages, they've said they're going to do certain things, and they've gone on to do those things, and in many cases more than those things. So I have confidence not only in their ability to execute, but that in turn growing value for the project over time. And then even if, let's say, things dip in value and I may not be able to flip it for a quick buck, let's say, I will be able to reap the rewards of the things that they deliver along the way. So it's almost like a non-monetary dividend of sorts in owning that particular asset. Whereas what they call it a rug in the NFT industry, where there's projects as well where you see this new sexy thing on Instagram, you go and mint it, and then I can get into the details of what particularly I look for in evaluating projects, but one of the biggest red flags is anonymous developers. So it basically means there's no consequence if they were to just vanish off the face of the earth, which happens. So if you do the math on it, if you offer 10,000 units at, let's call it 0.05 Ethereum, that's about $200 some odd, and there's 10,000 units of them. I think that's $2 million if I'm doing the math right. And I could offer that up, collect that $2 million, and just peace out and never hear from you again. And you'd have no way to track me down, no way to come find you. And then at that point, the project's worth nothing because they're never going to deliver on anything, and thus it's worthless.
Have you bought stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I've been rugged.
Really?
Oh yeah, but it's commonplace, and that speaks to the bits. Like I don't say that as a place of shame, because anyone in the industry will have said they've been rugged before. But that it speaks to the risk that goes into this. So that goes back to my stance. I would much rather buy a project with known developers, a track record of performance, a strong community that even when times are bad, as in like the floor price going down, it's going to sustain itself. There's always going to be an excited group of individuals who own the project and are going to hype the project and continue to build excitement around the project. And then it's funny because I really, in many instances, the art itself is behind all that. Like you want to get the value out of it, and you want to have some certainty in performance on an ongoing basis, which is why I tend to buy projects that are already in the marketplace versus buying new ones that haven't done anything yet.
Right. And I remember when like I was about to text you and you texted me. You were like, yo, you know, if you buy that, I would hurry up because the floor price is dropping a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I noticed that. And I was like, you know, what does that attribute to? And your answer was pretty interesting. You're like, well, it's just a bunch of like shitty new projects that are coming up that for whatever reason they're getting all this hype, and you know, look at it as a discount. There's a limited amount of liquidity in the space, and the stat which I think is probably even more dramatic, as if I were to look it up now. But let's say there's 400,000 wallets on the leading market OpenSea, which is the Ethereum network, most popular one. There are over at this point 2 million people signed up for the beta of Coinbase NFT marketplace. So it's to show that there's like almost immediate term in the short to midterm upside to growing the market. But then further, the actual amount of people exchanging these things around in this sort of very small ecosystem is very limited. Like 400,000 is not a big number. Right.
So inherently, when new projects come up and there's this new shiny object that people want to gravitate towards, that liquidity's got to come out of somewhere, and that is out of existing projects. And if they want to sell quickly, someone lists below the next person, and that person lists below the next person, and that's just a race to the bottom where it ends up dropping the price on these things. But if you stick to fundamentals, if you have belief in the project at large, you have belief in the founders of the project at large, you don't really worry about that stuff because you know that their ability to execute is going to sustain them in the long term and build value. Even if all take the price out of it, you're going to continue to get value out of what you own, and it's not just an investment at that point.
Yeah, that's interesting, bro. Because also, you talked earlier, like you can, what if companies start to use, like if they buy, like for example, we use Lil Baby, right? Lil Baby as an example, like he has an ape, and like you're like, well, what if, I guess what if they start using that as, like a prompt on their, their concert and stuff like that, like all of that sort of just like
that there are DJs that do that already. Like right? I forget. It's a DJ duo. I forget the name of them, but they at EDC they like had their whole visuals was centered around their ape. Like that's a very real thing.
I saw this thing about like UMG. They bought a few apes.
Universal.
Yeah. So and I remember like you spoke on Fortnite. Like Fortnite did like a Travis Scott concert.
Yep.
So do you see
Pokemon Go did an Ed Sheeran concert yesterday, by the way.
Really?
So these metaverses in whatever form they may be are continuing to evolve. I don't mean to cut you off, but it's a fresh example. But yeah, it's crazy like what is happening in these worlds that don't exist and that they're not in real life, but they exist in this digital way, which is now becoming a true thing of existence. It's kind of like deep, but we'll leave it at that.
Dude. No, one of the things, bro, I wanted to ask you. Well, you kind of touched on it, like utility after you have it, like after you own it. It's so funny, bro. I was telling my mom, I'm like, yo, mom, do you like this one? Like, I'm kind of might buy this one, and she's like, well, like, what is it? I'm just like, well, you use it for, it can be used as certain things. You can attach it to whatever. But she's like, what if I can just take it? Number one thing people want to say is they take a screenshot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And so they can.
Right. But like, what is your response to that when people say that? Like, cause I that's where I always kind of get stuck and I'm just like, I own it, but
let me just do a little exercise here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to show you this NFT that I own. I'm going to using that same logic.
Yeah.
I'm going to show the camera this new thing that I just stole. It's the Mona Lisa. I copied and pasted that picture of the Mona Lisa. Isn't that crazy that I just stole it?
Yeah.
Can't hear me anymore. Sorry, the point I was making was around basically any piece of art can be copied and pasted that way. Even whether it's in a digital way like this Mona Lisa that I just showed, or a Jackson Pollock, which is usually just paint spotters on a piece of canvas, whatever it may be. The ownership is more it's intrinsic in the verifiable version of whatever it is that's being presented. And So that verifiable version, like that JPEG I can put on Twitter, which then someone can take and put it on Facebook, which then someone can take and post it on Instagram. Like that JPEG's just, that's gone. Like that's off in the cyberverse. But no one would argue that that is the legitimate Mona Lisa, despite it being copied and pasted everywhere.
Right.
It goes back to the verifiable way of proving that, which in the case of NFTs is on the blockchain. So it is a immutable, which means it can't be changed, and a verifiable, which means there's clear evidence of it that ties to a digital wallet token that is represented by the JPEG itself. So anything that anyone copies and pastes, clicks and drags, right click saves, like you're not taking the NFT, you're taking the JPEG representation of that token, but that token always traces back to the original owner, which lives in the blockchain.
Right. So it's like I can take a screenshot of your ape. That doesn't mean I'm going to get into these yacht parties.
Correct.
See?
You can try though.
I mean, bro, we might as well. I'm just kidding. The verification process, like after you buy, because that's the, I went on OpenSea, I bought it, I sent you a screenshot, and I was like, okay, like what now? Like how? Like you're like, it's just gonna go to your. I think I was talking to somebody else, and I was like, he's like, it's gonna go to your wallet, and then from there you see everything, and then I went on OpenSea, I searched it up, and it's like owned by Chewy Tubler.
Yeah,
I'm like, damn right,
it's real now. And don't you forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't necessarily have the technological answer to that. But ultimately, you probably went on Etherscan, which is like the hub for all Ethereum transactions. That's going to stay there forever. And obviously you go on OpenSea, which is a more centralized platform interface that allows you to see, it basically pairs, okay, I know this wallet owns this token. I know this token is represented by this JPEG. Thus, I'm going to pair these things together. I see an OpenSea, okay, this lion is owned by Chewy Tubleri, and that's what everyone understands. But it lives as a token on the blockchain, which is then attributed to your wallet. And you would have to conduct a transaction of some sort, whether that be a sale of the asset, whether you send it to someone else, or whatever it may be, to remove that. Like, no one can come in and change the blockchain where that lives such that you would lose ownership of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's like if I steal your Rolex, I mean, that's just mine now.
Yeah, exactly. But unless there's like, obviously there's nefarious schemes around scams and tricking people, which exists in every industry and every culture. But just this one's a little bit more new, so people aren't exactly used to how you get scammed and don't really know what to look for. But beyond that, there is no way that someone can change the blockchain, surely, but beyond that, manipulate things such that they could then take that from you without your permission.
Right. I bought the. I told you about the.
Yeah, the ledger.
The ledger.
Yeah,
thing
that's everyone should
like,
protect their assets with a ledger. Yeah.
Dude, no, I started reading about it, and then they had like like the right reviews on it, and then I saw that some dude had 2 apes stolen from him, and like when they bought one on Amazon, and I was just like, oh my god, bro, this is so crazy.
There's very intricate ways that people scam you, and it's they pose as people who are with the platforms that you trade on, and they're customer service people, and you can trust them. They want to screen share with you. They find ways to access your private key, which basically gives you carte blanche access to everything that you own, your whole wallet, and then they pull stuff that way. The good part about a hardware wallet, this is getting into the boring mechanics of actual ownership and whatever,
right.
But basically every transaction you have to approve. So at least as far as I know, knock on some wood, there's no way you can get scammed, because even if someone were to get access, you have to use the hardware to say, yes, I want to do this transaction. Whereas if you're on a hot wallet, if they access it, there is no hardware fail-safe to prevent someone from being able to scoop everything if they get the right access. I'll ask you, tell me about your plans with your lion. Like, what are your ambitions for ownership? How do you want to engage with the community? We're flipping the script here.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm trying to get familiar with, keeping up with the Discord. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was trying to upload.
You and me both.
Yeah. I was trying to upload it to like get my Roar rewards.
Yeah.
And it was taking forever, so I'm like, damn, bro. So like, as of right now, I just want to get in tune with that. And yeah. So, but with like actually attaching it to the podcast. Yeah. I mean, I want it to be sort of the same thing, right? Where like you take the juice from the project, and try to inject it into the
Yeah.
into this audience and vice versa. You know what I mean? There's like 50,000 Discord members. You know what I mean? All kind of, not all kind of, supporting the same thing. And I want to see how we can, we can lift everything up.
And
together,
you like have that built-in audience too, because, and this is probably something that you should do for this episode. You can in the thumbnail like be that first placement of your lion, and then put that out to the community and say, hey, I'm a new lion holder. I'm utilizing my lion to be my podcast brand. Would love for you all to check it out. And especially for the lions, I can almost guarantee you would have a multiplier on your previous high number of viewers for these episodes, just because that community is so strong. And that's what it's all about, is like elevating each other, elevating what other people are working on. And then with that lion front and center, that makes you a part of that community, and that community will go great lengths to lift you up, which is a cool dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, that's I don't know, like there's something about, even though like I'm technically part of it, but I'm not on paper part of it because I haven't uploaded it.
Yeah.
It still feels pretty cool to be like, I'm with this group, and
it's an affiliation. It's like wearing a sports jersey. Like you
Yeah.
feel like you're a part of, like we all, when I talk about sports, I say we, like I'm on the fucking
For
football
sure.
team. But like that's not true. In this case, it is true. Like you're talking about we the Lazy Lions, like you are verifiably an owner, a holder of one of the tokens,
Yeah.
and thus that
I'm a
makes you
board
part of
member,
it.
bro.
Exactly.
No, I remember what I was gonna ask you. So, going back to everything being decentralized, and I think that's why there's such a big popularity behind it.
Yeah.
I want to know your thoughts about like Facebook, like Meta, with all that, because that is technically a centralized platform. So, do they coexist? Does it not? Like, I saw this thing. It was like Nike decided to go with like Rollerblocks, and then Adidas went to a separate one, but they're technically two different universes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's I mean that's one of the big hurdles the industry aims to solve right now, is how do you create interoperability where if I own an asset that's usable in the Fortnite metaverse, I could then, like, let's say I buy a metaverse bag from Louis Vuitton. Like, how do I use that in Fortnite? How do I use that in Meta? How do I use that in Roblox? How do I use it in Call of Duty Warzone? Those are all game examples, so maybe not the best, but there's Sandbox, Decentraland. There's so many others out there that aren't necessarily game focused, but more of a true metaverse, I suppose. The Facebook answer will be interesting. Like I'm kind of watching it with everyone else. I think that the NFT space at large tends to be rather suspicious of their purposes, and it is really counterintuitive to what NFTs stand for, which is ownership of your. It's provenance, it's ownership, it's having possession of your entire persona. I hold you hold your lion, and that's verifiable, but it's private, it's public, but it's private, it's mine, I control it. Whereas Facebook's all about, all right, sign this data away. Now we can sell that, we can utilize that to serve you advertisements. That then gets to advertisers, and there's a lot of, it doesn't mesh with what really NFTs and as a derivative of that into metaverse application, like what that all stands for. So I don't know if you've seen Ready Player One, but like that's like kind of the running joke is like like the big bad company that stands to take over the Oasis, as it's known in the movie. Like that is what Facebook kind of is to a lot of people, but they may surprise us. Like I don't want to condemn them until we see what their plans are, because all we've really seen is like renderings and simulations of what this could look like. But they may say, you could buy something on the Facebook platform that allows you to represent yourself in such a way on Facebook, but then you could also bring in your outside NFTs and like your avatar from other worlds to then play around in Facebook's metaverse in different ways. And I just don't know the answer, but if I were to bet, I would say that it's going to be more of a garden wall, closed door ecosystem, and then everyone else outside of that is kind of going to band together and be like, all right, this is the true metaverse. And then there's Facebook, the big multi-trillion-dollar elephant in the room that's building this, like, just this amoeba of a metaverse that's trying to take over everything versus trying to embrace everything.
That's so interesting, man, because it's like, it could, whatever you can kind of think about this, like it could possibly be a thing, you know what I mean? You're like, well, it could be this, it could be that, but all of it kind of makes sense when you really look at it, like, using application with your, like I never thought about that. Like, we, maybe being on Facebook with your, like, essentially it'd be like an avatar, right? Because if you use the video game one, that'd be your player to be in that world.
Yeah,
I
I
guess?
mean, it's the magic of it is, think about how much we do today is online, whether that be via social media, whether that be through communication tools, through Zoom, especially over the past year and a half, like I said, with COVID, where like all of a sudden that holds priority over anything in the real world to certain extents. So yeah, you're basically like your new identity becomes this virtual world you live in and how you represent yourself within that world. So, take for example the Bored Ape Yacht Club. They're going to be doing metaverse stuff. So like you can be your ape, and there's only going to be 10,000 of these in the metaverse. So imagine the impact of seeing an ape walk by and like knowing like holy shit, like that's one of the Bored Ape Yacht Club members, and all of a sudden, even beyond just a Twitter, LinkedIn profile picture, like there's metaverse clout to be had by owning these assets. And like and as the world becomes more meta, so to speak, and like the metaverse becomes more and more of a prevalent method of communication, e-commerce, interaction, gaming, whatever it may be, that will have greater and greater impact as time goes on.
Hold on, bro. So no. E-commerce.
Literally drop the mic.
I know, because it's. Do you understand what he just said? No. So do you think that like it'll be like, because you said e-commerce? Do you like is it going to be? I just can't.
I mean,
I don't know.
imagine. Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time grasping it too. But imagine like a storefront, and you're exploring a virtual world. Let's call it, a virtual representation of Paris, let's say, and next to this virtual Eiffel Tower in the metaverse, there's a metaverse Louis Vuitton. You can walk into that store via your avatar. It's like a full virtual store. There is a salesperson there, an avatar of a salesperson. Welcome to Louis Vuitton. Can I help you find anything? Say, I'm attending a metaverse party. Come tomorrow. I'm looking for a new bag to bring with me to that party. They then show me this array of virtual items with zany, like there's it all, and you can suspend reality. And that's, in fact, I think Dolce & Gabbana did this, where they created virtual fashion using materials that aren't practical to use in real life, like a water dress, or just weird things that you like physics doesn't allow, but you obviously can in this virtual world. And you can purchase an asset, again, an NFT, that is Louis Vuitton branded, attached to them verifiably, like it's confirmed to be a real metaverse Louis Vuitton item. You could purchase that asset and then make it a part of your digital persona to wherever you may go. I mean, it sounds so weird when you word it that way, but then you think about what is wearing a Rolex, what value does that have in the real world? Like, why wouldn't that value translate? All it's saying, like it tells time, as well as a Casio tells time, but it's telling you that you have a certain amount of wealth, a certain amount of, it's almost like a pseudo membership. There's a story behind it, a history to it. And why can't that exist in the metaverse? And to me, that answer is that it can, and it will go on to exist in a number of different ways with different brands and in e-commerce, to use that point. But there's also an element of translation, and there's products that do this now, of creating, you buy a pair of Jordans in the metaverse, and then you get shipped a box with those actual Jordans. So you can have it both ways too. Like, these things are going to be interoperable, where just because you own it in real life doesn't mean you can't own it in the metaverse, and vice versa, where you buy it here and then you get shipped the actual item. So like there's going to be a blurring of lines between like IRL, like physical, and digital within the metaverse. And I can't answer what that's going to look like, but I'm kind of riffing here, but you can see the places. Of
course. So do you think at all there'll be a reality where that one, like metaverse, is more, I guess, prioritized more than this one?
Privatized in what way?
Prioritized.
Prioritized. Sorry, I misheard. Like in terms of like my presence in the metaverse versus my presence in real life.
Yeah, I mean like in Matrix, you know how like they're Porsche, like they're in this ship and then they get in there.
I mean, that's basically the plot of Ready Player One, where the whole world becomes a shithole because everyone's living in the Oasis, which is a much better world. You can be whatever you want, and the larger world suffers for it. I don't think it gets to that point. But to that end, like, it's kind of get off my lawn, but you walk around New York and everyone's on their phones anyways. Like the world in a number of ways has become that, but just on these smaller devices. But imagine that becomes immersive. Like, why wouldn't I? Like, why is it that I can be compelled by this screen and spend, if you look at your screen time, you'd be mortified about what you spend on it, but like several hours a day staring at this. But then if you make it a headset, like that's all of a sudden, like we'd never get to that point. But like imagine like, you know, you look back 20 years ago, imagine like someone saying that I would spend 7 hours a day looking at a device like this or a laptop, and you combine those, like that's probably 10 hours a day that I'm just staring at screens, TV. So it's I mean, if we're getting close to the end, I mean, that's
so crazy,
that's not like a great note to end things on, but it's just a behavioral shift in in how we think about these things. But I think there's a number of ways that it changes things for the better, and it allows it allows it for a more equitable scenario in terms of access. Like geography is less important. It gives everyone equal access to things that right now are gated by geography. It gives people equal access to certain resources, especially when those resources are structured digitally. It gives access to networks, so the ability to connect with people that are global, being close to friends and family who you wouldn't otherwise be able to see, but in this digital way, as that becomes more of a legitimate way to spend time with people, you'll have the power to do that. So as doom and gloom as it may seem based upon this Ready Player One sort of assumption around the world going to shit while everyone's has screens in front of their face, there's a lot of great things that could and I think will come out of it. And it's just about finding the balance between the priorities to go back to your question of, you know, what is real and what is not.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's the next episode.
No, yeah, dude, that's so crazy. So but yeah, I mean, to end on a more positive note, bro. I'm just playing, brother.
Yeah.
So, one last thing, bro. To anybody that says that NFTs are just like dumb, it's just a picture. Like, what do you say that? What do you say to them?
And this is blanket advice to anyone. Even if you want to buy one right now, I wouldn't say that, because the worst thing you could do is FOMO, basically buy based upon what you might miss out on. But I would just say get in, explore. Find communities that resonate with you, explore different projects, find people that are like-minded, that you enjoy being around. And it's advice that I give to everyone. And some people kind of roll their eyes, but I think there's a lot of truth to it. Buy something that if the value were to go to zero, you would still get value out of it, and you would still enjoy owning it regardless of what it's worth. And that's my barometer typically on what I buy, just because you never know where this is going to go, what's going to be valuable, what's not. But unlike a traditional investment, you'll always have something of value that you can hold, you can possess, and that you can engage with, even if that doesn't translate to necessarily monetary value. So that's sort of my North Star for thinking about NFTs and why I think it's fun. I'd encourage anyone to not get involved, but explore getting involved if they think and are able to spend the money on it.
Gotcha. Mr. Sam, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
bro.
thank you for
Tell them
having
where
me.
to find you, bro, if they want to find you on Instagram, LinkedIn.
Samson Simmons on Instagram, Sam Simmons on LinkedIn, and then good luck finding my burner Twitter account.
We appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Thank you.